Navigating Grief is a series of useful resources for those who've experienced loss. The holidays bring a whole new set of challenges, but there can be light in the darkness. Back here again as we do our series on the Advent candles. The Advent candles we have adapted to fit the needs of grief. And our final candle is love. Love. It is a smallest big word, isn't it? Perhaps the most painful kind of love is called grief, actually. And it happens when our love of something or someone is taken away with no hope for return. Grief is love. Think about that. Grief is love. And the confusion is caused by not knowing how to love something that we don't have anymore or isn't with us any longer. I mean, how can I continue to love? It's got to be one or the other, right, Karen?
That's when we have the and come back into play.
And,
yes. We grieve what we're connected to. We grieve what we love. We grieve what we've lost. And just because we no longer have that person, that place, that thing, doesn't mean they're not still a part of us. That bond that we had maintains. Love is everlasting. It never ends. So part of grief is learning, how do I incorporate this person who's no longer physically in my world into me, because they're always going to be a part of me. That love that they had for me never ends. The love I had for them never ends. You know, in hospice, we say this a lot to our families. The person died, the body may have died. That ended. The relationship never ends. The relationship will continue. We foster it, we maintain it, we nurture it. It's what sustains us. That love is what sustains us.
And it's interesting, so many, through the people that I have companioned through grief in our grief groups, most of the time, if you tell someone who has lost their spouse, you have, your husband is not here, he has passed, you are a widow. However, especially those who have been married for a very, very long time, their identity becomes wrapped up in who they were as Bev and Bob. The same thing with a parent who loses a child. Do I still have 3 children?
Yes.
There's always this question, am I still a wife if my husband of 50 years is gone? And so much your identity is wrapped up in who you were to the person who died. So how can I still be that and have that love if they're not here physically?
That's when we talked about our last Advent candle was memory. Is that memory helps us remain connected. It brings that relationship internally to me. I don't have the exterior, all this that tells me that. I have to have it inside of me. When you talk about maybe it was my spouse, well, what are some of the things my spouse told me about myself that taught me? Did they teach me, maybe it was funny things like taught me how to fish and not get the line stuck in the tree, or how to, get it unstuck when I do. Maybe it's how to love myself, how to not beat myself up when maybe I forgot to do something, how they would gently remind me that it was okay. Those are the types of things when you think about our mothers. My mom is always with me. I can think of something she would say to me, or something that she taught me of how to be in the world, that compassion that came from her. She taught me how to be compassionate. She modeled that for me. So part of her lives within me. And I share that piece of her. Her legacy lives on. That love goes on well beyond her physical presence. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that, the legacy of it. We talk of so many things. I think when people think legacy, they think, what they're going to leave for their kids to inherit, or what grand thing they did in their life, that's their legacy. And it's just the love and the relationship.
The legacy there is love.
Yes. So take that and know that no one can take that from you. Your loved one, physical presence might not be here, but they will never die if you do not let them. Really. And you touched on one other thing that I hadn't even thought about till you were talking, love. So we want to acknowledge that love of our loved ones never dies. It looks different. It doesn't have a physical manifestation here, but it's something that no one can ever take us away from us. And I love that, because Wolfelt had said, death separates us from the physical presence of those we love, but it does not, and it cannot separate us from the love itself. We continue to love even as we grieve. We will keep loving until our last breath, and who knows, perhaps beyond. Love endures, and it is love that will continue to make our life meaningful. So, two things there. It is love that continues to make our life meaningful. So whether that is the love that we have from those that have passed on, or those that we continue to love. Some people think, well, what is my purpose now? He was that was my son. I was his mother. He is gone. Or this was my spouse of 50, 60 years. I have no purpose now. So the meaning of love as far as others, but also you said something that made me think, the love for ourselves, that the love we have for ourselves, to be patient with ourselves, grace with ourselves, to go through this grieving, and to know that it's not going to be easy. Anything else you could tell me as a griever, as far as, or to that griever who has lost the love of their life after 60 years, and how to continue to love and love oneself?
That is just all about the grace that you give to yourself. When we have our folks that, lose the love of their life, I tell them it's like losing a part of you. Half of you's missing. You're not going to just wake up one day and know how to be in the world without half of you. We weren't born walking. We had to learn how to roll over. We had to learn to crawl before we could stand. And grief is a lot like that. And we have to love ourselves a lot to be able to give ourselves permission that I'm not going to be running. Half of me's missing. I have to figure out how to crawl. And it's okay that I'm crawling. And that it's okay that now I'm finally kneeling. It's okay that I'm taking this day by day the best I can.
Gosh, that was a great visual. Thank you. Half of me is missing. And that's, I've heard people equate it to losing a leg. Like their identity has changed. And no matter who, even if it's a divorce and you're a wife for 25 years and all of a sudden you're not a wife, it's your identity, right? And so that visual of getting on the floor and just a baby going from its back to its belly to crawling, and you're just kind of starting all over again. Absolutely. And learning it on your own, right?
And we have to trust that we are held in love, that in essence, that we've always been held in love. Christ's love is enduring and always. So we are the beloved, but we have to embrace that. We have to hear that voice that's coming that says, you are my beloved. On you my favor rests. We have to believe that we are love. We are loved, and we will put that foot in front of the other. We will learn to crawl, to stand, to walk, to run, right? But we have to give ourselves that place to love ourselves, to do it.
As slow as it may be, right?
Absolutely.
So Advent candles, our Advent candles, we have been through grief, and Christ in our grief, and Christ with us to help us, give us courage, and Christ in our memories and helping us have those memories. And tonight is Christ in love. So Christ is with us as we love ourselves, as we move through our grief. Christ is there to remind us of the love that he gives us, but not only that he gives us, that our loved ones gave us, and that is still there through him. Their love still exists for us. Yeah. Anything else there that I'm forgetting in Christ is love? And I know you have a beautiful, beautiful way to send us out this evening.
Well, there's a beautiful poem that is from Mary Farr that just kind of makes me think of that, and that voice that I hear in my head of Christ talking to me in my grief. And this is called If I Could Mend Your Heart. If I could mend your heart, I would weave together the ragged edges of your threadbare heart and soothe your pain, your shock, your disbelief. I would invite you to touch your sorrow, feel your feelings, and not pretend to be strong or capable or composed. I would listen without comment to all that is unsettled in your soul. I would shape for you fresh ways of seeing through prisms of sunlight that warm your emptiness and guide the way. Prisms of sunlight that temper and replace your doubts with faith, your grief with gratitude, your fear with trust. If I could mend your heart.
Thank you. Thank you for that. That was beautiful. If I could mend your heart, I would in a second. But I know that really the only person who has the power to mend each of our hearts lies within myself and Christ within me. That's the end of our Advent candles. And thank you so much, Carrie, for your time. Appreciate you.
Thank you. And blessings to all.
Blessings to all.